Welcome to a new episode of That Fertile Feeling, the podcast. And if you are watching this, then you can see that I'm not in my usual spot. I'm not behind my desk, but I'm actually traveling. I've been on the road for about a month now. We flew from the Netherlands to Canada, and we're on an 8-month trip, driving our camper van from Canada, from Halifax, all the way down to Panama. Hopefully, we'll have to see what happens at the US border, of course, but that's the plan. That's also why I didn't put out any episodes last month. We were really busy packing up our home and getting everything ready and also just getting on the road. But I'm very happy to be here today with Aggie McCabe, who is a trauma-informed functional thyroid nutritionist. She's a mind-body coach, and she specializes in thyroid conditions. And she has a special focus on Hashimoto's disease and nervous system regulation. I actually took one of her courses a couple of months ago, Thyroid Calm, it was called, we just discussed. And I was really drawn to that integration of the nervous system work, thyroid work. I've mentioned this before, but I have had my own thyroid journey as well. That definitely had an effect on my ability to conceive. After my thyroid infection, I had a thyroid infection a couple of years ago, and it meant that my thyroid got so damaged that it wasn't producing enough hormones. And it took me about a year to get back to a level where I could even try to conceive again. So that is also why I wanted to invite Aggie on the show today, because that thyroid has such an important effect on your fertility. So welcome, Aggie. Can you tell us a little bit more about who you are and what you do?
Hello, so happy to be here. And I think you've done a pretty good job. Like you covered a lot. So yes, all of that is true. I am a nutritionist. I am also a somatic nervous system practitioner, and I work with women exclusively with thyroid conditions exclusively. So a subject that is very close to my heart because of my personal journey as well. So I am a fellow Hashimoto's, so the autoimmune thyroid condition warrior. So I personally relate to all the struggles, and yes, you are very correct with the obviously the link between fertility, female hormones in general, and thyroid. Huge link there, and unfortunately, that really for a lot of women is that one factor that is really stopping them from conceiving, and the nervous system also plays a role here. So all of this super interconnected.
And can you share us a little bit or tell us a little bit more about your own healing journey?
Yeah, sure. So it's been a while now. I think I was 27, 28 when I was first diagnosed with Hashimoto. So first actually with hypothyroidism. So I just went for a general checkup. I wasn't feeling great. I was really tired, the drill of the thyroid symptoms. So I gained a bit of weight. I was feeling sluggish. I got checked up and my TSH came up as 5, which is elevated. And my GP suggested a low dose of levothyroxine. So obviously none of the kind of, what can you do to actually improve the situation? Here's the pill. Off you go. You'll be fine. So for me, it wasn't such a huge surprise because my mum had thyroid issues. So she had Graves, so hyperactive, and then it kind of like your story, but autoimmune origin. Then she basically moved from hyper to hypo. So those symptoms, thyroid conditions, that was very familiar to me, and I was kind of expecting that might happen to me also. I was still surprised because I didn't expect to get sick at such a young age. But I knew what to do. So I did a little bit of digging, and I found out I had Hashimoto's. And that really was this kickstart to this big journey. I am a very inquisitive person, and I immediately started looking for a solution. So I did take the pill, which, to be honest, if I was to do this whole journey again, considering how little was my TSH elevated, I would have probably just done the natural way first. But I didn't have, right? And I definitely didn't have a clue about this nervous system involvement. And I was in a very toxic relationship that I since left a long time ago. I was in a very deeply stressful job. I moved country, so there was a lot of this dysregulation, which I think really contributed to my symptoms and possibly even development of the condition, right? So I started my own journey. I tried the protocol. So, I went down the paleo route and eliminations, gluten, dairy, all sorts of things, obviously got eliminated. And I started feeling better fairly quickly. So, the classic approach, holistic approach, definitely works. I managed to reduce my antibodies. I was still on medication, but, on paper, I was almost in remission. But the issue was that I wasn't feeling like me. I was still feeling like this, someone has taken over my body and it's not my normal, vibrant self anymore. And this led to more studies. So I decided to study nutrition because I was like, there is something there and I need to uncover what is deeper. And I started thinking, maybe I can do it as a job. I really saw it as something that could be possible. But then I didn't think I would be working with thyroid per se. I just thought I would do nutrition, right? Like, just general nutrition. And then thyroid found me again. But yes. So that was it. Then I studied it. Then I became a nutritionist. And only after I was already practicing, and I realized my clients were getting better, like really better. But like me, there was this ceiling, like this, almost like this glass ceiling to healing that no one could get through. It was, you get to this point where, you feel better, but not 100% like you. And this is when I came across the nervous system regulation. I did several certifications in various modalities. I studied polyvagal theory, somatic therapy, somatic EMDR, and now this is really something that is the foundation of my business. So every person that comes to my world and goes through my hands is really experiencing that power of regulation alongside of everything else. So it's important to stress that the nervous system work doesn't really replace what we do with diet, but it's a very different approach to things. So less elimination heavy, more inclusivity and developing that safety. So that's really my story. And right now I am in full remission. I am off my meds. I got off the meds actually about 3 years ago. And I fully believe that the nervous system work and getting off antidepressants that I was on for quite some time, anxiety meds, stopping all of this and fully embracing the holistic approach really allowed me to fully stop the medication. And now my TSH, my thyroid hormones are in optimal ranges. My, antibodies are gone and they don't fluctuate. I think that is something that is very common. People, just see those fluctuations forever. Both in myself and my clients, like I really see with involvement of the nervous system, like once they're gone, yeah.
There's so much there that I want to pick up on.
I can imagine.
What I really recognize you saying is, so you had these elevated levels, you went to your doctor and they gave you the pill. You gave you hormones. And that's the same thing that happened for me. I had an acute inflammation in my thyroid. So my thyroid was just leaking hormones out into my bloodstream. Okay. And then it got damaged through that viral infection. And that's why it started underperforming after. And so my doctor told me, well, we'll see how it goes for a couple of weeks. And if nothing changes, we'll put you on the levothyroxine, the synthetic. It's not a synthetic hormone, right? It's a real hormone, I think.
Synthetic. It's a bioidentical. So it's the same thing as our body produces, but synthetical. And we can talk about it a little bit later because it's not the ultimate evil, but it shouldn't be the only thing, right?
Yeah. And I remember thinking at the time that how are we then going to fix this? And we're not going to fix this. Then this is me taking this hormone for the rest of my life. And that felt, when you're on a more holistic path, that just felt weird. It felt like we weren't addressing the real symptom. But maybe before we dive into this whole topic, we can go back a little bit and discuss what the thyroid actually is and why thyroid health is so important for fertility.
Okay, back to the basics.
Back to the basics.
So it's like this little gland that sits in front of your neck. It's shaped like a butterfly and it's very close to your skin. So it's like actually very close to the front of your neck. And the reason why it's so important is because it's like a little command center. So it actually manages a lot of functions in the body, including things like temperature and heart rate. And this is why, for example, I don't know if you can relate, but a lot of people with thyroid conditions feel cold all the time. They've got either heart palpitations, like a really slow heart rate, or sometimes quick. But all of it is managed by the thyroid. But also it's involved in so many other functions like our hormones, right? And this is why we're here. It really manages the entire cascade of hormones, and it's at the center of it. So it's got involvement with the nervous system, with the hormonal system, with the digestive system, like literally every process in the body. So yeah, although we can't tell it's that. So it's not like the heart that we can feel, right? That something is wrong. We can't tell it's that if it's working properly. But when it starts malfunctioning, we have this feeling something is off, but I can't pinpoint what it is. And this is why so many women fall through so much trouble getting even diagnosed, because those symptoms are so non-specific and the testing is not advanced to the point where everything would be picked up when it should be picked. And I said women, and you know, the reality is that most cases of thyroid conditions are in females, in women. So I think it's 8 or 10 times we are more likely to develop a thyroid condition than men.
Yeah. And yeah, I recognize that it has such a huge effect on your system, as you mentioned. Like when I had that viral infection, I just told you, but I lost, I think, 7 kilos in one month. I had heart palpitations like crazy. And then afterwards, when I moved to the other side of the spectrum, so to an underperforming thyroid, I would be outside and it would be 24 degrees outside and I was shivering. It's just intense what happens with your body. Hi there. I'm quickly breaking in to tell you that my next round of Nourished, a 10-week journey to help you conceive with love, trust, and surrender, will be starting on Sunday, August 10th. So this is a 10-week journey where I guide you deep through the nervous system. We form a community of women, so this is a group of max 10 women. And every week I will share with you practices and lectures to help you find that confidence within yourself, really connect to your body, connect to fertility in a way that feels joyful. If you'd like to join us, you can find more information at thatfertilefeeling.com/nourished. I would love to have you there. Yeah. What are some of the common thyroid issues that you observe in your clients?
So the most common is actually hypothyroidism. So what you went into as the next stage. So that is something that is hugely, hugely common. So it's about 1 in 10 women that will experience a thyroid condition in their lifetime. And most of those will be hypothyroidism, which is in over 90% of cases due to the autoimmune condition called Hashimoto's. Then we've got Graves', which is again autoimmune condition. That's what my mom had, and that leads to, because it's essentially it's a condition that leads to essentially like a distraction of the thyroid. And very often the doctors will put you on radioactive iodine, put you on medication to literally destroy it, and then a lot of people swing into hypothyroidism following that. And then less common, I will see, you know, various other, like what you described, so potentially inflammation, some toxic nodules, things like this. But this is very rare. So I would say I don't generally maybe see it once a year, usually hypothyroidism. And I don't personally deal with thyroid cancer, but I deal with clients who would come to me with a complete thyroidectomy. So they would have had their thyroid completely removed. And we still can work on so much in that case, because as you can imagine, losing an organ, going through the process is hugely traumatizing, right? So that nervous system involvement, absolutely that.
Yeah. And are there any specific root causes that you find that many of your clients have in common?
Well, the nervous system, right? So what we've just been talking about. So trauma as the root cause of the thyroid conditions, absolutely huge. Generally speaking, we need a genetic predisposition, right, for something like this to develop. And then we need to have a trigger. And that trigger very often is trauma. And it can go back as far as childhood. So adverse childhood experiences, ACEs, can lead to changes in our microbiome that then can later in life contribute to thyroid autoimmunity. So, you know, it could be like a singular event that we can pinpoint, or it can be something that is completely like beyond our level of consciousness, you know, even going as deep as inherited trauma. And the reason why it matters is because, when we go through something like this, our nervous system and our body gets dysregulated and it gets stuck in this fight or flight, right? Fight or flight, freeze, even, when we feel demotivated and so on. And the body stuck in that survival mode will not prioritize healing. So that is huge. But also there are other factors. So very rarely this is one thing. So the gut dysfunction that can start as, in the childhood, that is another condition that for most people is present. And there is even some research showing that in order to develop autoimmunity, which is again behind over 90% of cases, we need to have a level of microbiome dysfunction, so a level of dysbiosis. So this is why when we look into the physiological root cause healing, we work with the gut quite a lot. We have hormones. For a lot of women, the root cause, as in the trigger, is going to be pregnancy or a birth, especially if it was a little bit traumatic, right? Any hormonal changes. So for a lot of women, menopause as well. So there are those points in life when a lot changes, and these are the points where it's most likely the thyroid condition will make an appearance or a few years later. Also, I'm just thinking what else? Things like viruses, bacteria, anything that goes through the body and again causes that physiological impact and the body has to respond. And quite often the response to it is just inappropriate to the event. So for example, after COVID, we had a little bit of a surplus of this, of like spikes in antibodies, new diagnoses. Same with the flu, EBV, like all those things can be at the root cause. Things like mold exposure, heavy metals, infections in the gut very often. So not just this biosis, but so yeah, can be a lot of things. But what I have found is via addressing the very foundation. So we work with the nervous system, we work with lowering the inflammation, we work with the daily habits. We can address most people, I would say 80 to 90, sometimes 100% of the symptoms. And only in the cases where there is not enough of an improvement, I recommend digging deeper, spending thousands on testing. For a lot of people, that's not necessary.
I love that. Starting basics. And what
Yeah.
I see that a lot of themes sort of come together, things that have come up on the podcast before. So you mentioned it's 8 out of 10 cases, it's women, right? That have thyroid.
Yeah. Almost
Very
a
a female thing. That most of the cases are linked to an autoimmune disease. The important role that the gut plays, and we've known or we've discussed in previous episodes that the gut is also like a large endocrine organ. So there's a lot of hormonal regulation that takes place in the gut. And just it reminds me again of how autoimmunity and inflammation is often such a large underlying thing when it comes to fertility challenges. And that it's also the effect of us living in a world, in a society where women especially are at the receiving end of so much stress. You can't even blame yourself. This is about how we are structurally, there's chemical stress around us. There's systemic stress. How do you integrate that in your nervous system work?
Like there is a lot of this also like the good girl conditioning, putting everyone else first, right? Like I need the fixer. It absolutely is a huge part, and I work with it as a part of the general identity, beliefs, mindset work, where we kind of look at how we see ourselves and our patterns and defaults, because a lot of it, of course, is like I said, systemic. It's out of our control. It's something that happened to us, but we have so much power over our response to it. So that's something I guide people through, absolutely. And especially I see it's called fawning in the nervous system world, that's tendency for poor boundaries, taking too much on your plate, trying to fix everything, and also having that guilt around the healing. And I see that also in women that are struggling with conception, right? That somehow they have this knowing a deeper conviction, it's my fault. It's something that I'm not doing. It's really releasing that can be that point where they move from that self-guilt and into healing, and actually the body regulates and so much more can happen.
Yeah. When so I took your course, the 3-day course, and I thought, okay, I want to look at those root causes more, or that the nervous system trauma root cause more deeply. So I started meditating on the thyroid, and I was really annoyed with what came up because I was sitting. I remember this clearly. I was sitting in front of the fireplace. Then the 2 messages I got was, you need to eat more stewed apples with cinnamon, and I'm sure you can speak to that.
Microbiome.
Microbiome. And the second thing I got was, you need to look at the witch wound. And I was super annoyed by that because I always find it a bit dramatic to talk about like the witch burnings that happened, centuries ago, and it weren't even that many women. I know it happened, right? I know it was traumatic, but still, does everything have to go back to the witch wound? But my body was telling me, okay, go back to the witch wound. And we actually have a place in the Netherlands where women could be weighed. So that was in the Middle Ages. So it was a marketplace, and women could go there and could get weighed, and then they would get a certificate that they weren't witches. Because if you had like a normal weight, then you couldn't be a witch, because witches flew on broomsticks, so they had to be very light. So
that's very logical.
Yes. So I thought I'd go there just because they built a whole museum around those witch hunts there, and it was really impressive to see what happened and just to sense into the repression that took place and the fear. And I realized, okay, maybe this is something. I have to accept that this is something that we still carry in our systems. And what I've noticed since is that I now call my thyroid my guide. I'm also pointing to the place here because this is where I feel it when I'm not living like my most authentic life. When I get stuck in old patterns, or like externalized, or when I internalize these expectations, and when I'm not living truly from my own power and purpose, that is when my thyroid, it starts to ache, it starts to throb, and it calls me back into what is right. And I think that's also what I love about holistic medicine, is that you change your symptoms from problems into really your guides that help you move into your most, authentic.
I look a little bit deeper, and what you just said is such a shared experience. I literally just had like a one-to-one somatic session, and with a client from one of my programs, and she described the same thing, that that pain in the ocean. She's just like, it feels like something is in my throat, like it feels like my thyroid might be swollen, and that's such a common experience. And then when we started digging into it, it uncovered so much about this inability to speak her truth, not being understood by her parent. And all of it was basically manifesting in the thyroid area. She wasn't actually fully saying that it's to do with inflammation, but she was just like, it is here. And I was like, yes, throat chakra, the expression of your true authentic self, it's blocked. Like, can we dig a little bit deeper? And we uncovered all sorts of things. But fascinating, and such a, again, just shared experience. And the thyroid, I feel, is like this gatekeeper to us being and living, in our full truth. So interesting little ground.
How would someone know that their thyroid is something that they need to look at?
So I would say, if you're feeling like something is off, if you're just sluggish, brain foggy, if your cycle is changing, if your weight is changing, so you're either gaining or losing and you haven't changed your diet, just basic blood work done. It's not, it doesn't have to be the thyroid. It could be perimenopause, for example, starting super early for some people in their 30s, right? So it doesn't have to be the thyroid. There are non-specific symptoms. So it isn't like, I don't know, like you've got let's say an organ and it hurts and that's it. So thyroid, it won't hurt, but it will give those non-specific symptoms. Your doctor might ignore it. So it's really important to ask just for a basic thyroid screen, which includes TSH, T4, T3, and antibodies. And if you do that, you will know, is there autoimmunity? Is there any issue with the actual thyroid function? So very often we would see things like subclinical, for example, hypothyroidism, right? So we need to make sure that it's not something that your GP would necessarily pick up. So you need to make sure, you check it yourself and you're like, okay, I know that I am in the optimal ranges.
Yeah. And you also have a masterclass on that, right? Reading your thyroid results.
I do. Yeah, there is this is like on demand. It's called Decode Your Thyroid, and you can basically watch it and teach yourself how to be your own interpreter, your own doctor, so you don't have to rely on them. And when you do come to see them, you can be coming to the appointment with this empowerment and have those empowered conversations versus just sit there looking at your doctor, waiting for them to tell you, right? But you can tell them, and then you can have this like more, not demanding, but more like negotiating conversation around your meds, for example.
Yeah.
Because a lot of people are at the mercy of the doctor again when it comes to dosage, when in real fact you can just kind of suggest changes. You can be like, I think based on the training and research I've done, that I would maybe do better with a slightly higher or lower dosage. And I
Yeah.
don't think a lot of women do that because we just haven't been told what it all means.
And when someone is preparing to get pregnant, are there things you would tell them to look out for?
So this is a little bit of a controversial topic with some of my clients because a lot of them come to me and they are really eager, right, to get started. They just want to like, let's start working on it and we can have a baby very soon. But the reality is that we need to take some time to reduce the inflammation. So in particular, when there is Hashimoto's present and the antibodies are really high, it is best to spend a few months trying to bring that down a little bit, just because there is such a huge link between miscarriages and Hashimoto's, and we can't deny it. I don't think it's a sentence or anything. It's not something that you should be really worried about because, like what we think kind of becomes, right? So I don't think this should be at the forefront of our mind because I know plenty of people, plenty of clients who successfully conceived with high antibodies, so it's possible. But a wise thing to do would be to spend some months bringing down the inflammation, working on the nervous system. And then once the antibodies, I would say, are like in the lower end, then trying. When it comes to your hormones, you really want to make sure that your TSH is under 2 and your hormones are optimized. So T4 and T3. And again, the GP can be helpful with that, but really knowing what to look out for, super important. So I think that actually a masterclass like Decode Your Thyroid can be really helpful because then you know what you're aiming for. And really just chilling out for a few months. Like it just sounds really simple, but I know how much stress it can cause, especially for women who go for like IBS, and it just seems like this probably one of the most stressful things you can go through in life. And it's amazing because the body, in order to conceive, really needs to be in this state of regulation. Because when we're running from the tiger, when we are in fight or flight, making babies is really not on the agenda. So it's not surprised really that, the all sorts of stories where, there is very little success there. And I think it's not easy, but it's something that could possibly, if there is a little bit of time, like I said, I think 3 months could really create a very significant change.
Yeah, and what I would like to add to that is that I've been doing a lot of research lately on fetal development. So the development of your baby during pregnancy and also the link with the nervous system. And it's so crucial. Like from that first trimester, your baby, it doesn't have a brain yet. All it does is it's in a reptile state in that first trimester. All it does is sense into the mother's environment. And that's the basis of your baby's nervous system. The basis is created by that reptile stage of your baby constantly feeling, am I safe? Is my mother safe? What
Yeah.
environment are we in? So those months that you take before conception to really learn how to regulate your nervous system, that's crucial also for that pregnancy to be able to, because I always tell moms or women who are trying to conceive, it's not about being without stress, right? All that work you do, maybe with Aggie or with me, that work trying to regulate your nervous system or learning how to regulate your nervous system, learning how to work with your body. It's crucial work also for that pregnancy. And it's not about being without stress. It's about showing your baby and showing your system that you know how to manage stress, that you can move in and out of those stress states. Because that's, in the end, when it comes to inflammation, also what happens is just that we're stuck in constant stress. We no longer have the tools to deregulate yourself. But maybe that's also a good question for you. Is like, what are some of the basics that you help women get started with when it comes to nervous system work? Yeah.
When it comes to nervous system. So yeah, can I just say one thing about what you just said, just very quickly, and then we can go into tools. So basically, in terms of that, what you said about how the nervous system of the mother shapes the nervous system of the child, is just really taps into this lovely idea that, how we hear about like inheriting trauma. And what I really like to talk to women about is passing on the healing. And is there a more beautiful way to pass on that healing that literally help to shape your baby's nervous system? And that will literally determine how it's going to respond to stress and life as it happens. And as you quite rightly said, like, it's not about the stress. The stress is fine. Like, we are very resilient creatures, but it's the stress that takes us out of regulation and we get stuck in that dysregulation. That is the problem. So it's almost our ability to respond to it that's the problem, not the stress itself. Then, of course, there will be trauma and things that, they are a little bit more significant. But again, with the right tools, and we can talk about the tools now, we can really shape it. And our nervous system, at the end of the day, wants to heal. There is so much research done on the power of the nervous system healing and regenerative almost ability, like via the vagus nerve and all the other practices. So super, super interesting. But yeah, thanks for saying that. That was awesome.
I love that. Pass on the healing. That's great.
And yeah, I love to like, so it is just obviously through having children, but also through just being around other people. Co-regulation is such a huge thing. Like, our nervous system really tunes with the nervous systems of other people. So if we do the work on self-regulation, the people around us will just benefit as a result. It rubs off, which I think is such a powerful way to think about it. So yeah, shall we talk about the tools? What can be done?
Yeah.
So I think number one thing that anyone needs to do is really understand how the nervous system works for them. So do a little bit of this nervous system mapping. And I love polyvagal theory for it. So we obviously work with the vagus nerve. We work with the, dorsal, freeze, ventral, safety, fight or flight, freeze. Like, really spend some time with it and identify, how does it feel in my body if I am taken, up out of my regulation and into this fight or flight? Like, how does it present in my body? What happens when I go into freeze, and I feel demotivated and like I'm really emotionally flat? How does it feel? So creating a little bit of pause and really tuning into your body to find out what it's like for me in my own body experience. And then using some techniques and tools like somatic things like breathwork and somatic practices to try to just self-regulate a little bit. And we have so much more power than we've been led to believe. How many of us have been told that we are just emotional women, like going through PMS and or being anxious naturally, right? Whereas the reality is that we can really change those responses. So, of course, breath work is powerful. One of my favorite techniques is physiological sigh breathing. And what I like to combine it with is humming. So that is to be used for situations where we really feel like we are a little bit stressed or upregulated and we want to bring it down. Also useful when we are, for example, trying to fall asleep, we're getting ready for a meeting, and we want to just find this grounding. But I also find it almost like a little bit activating. So it's like this grounded, very calm, but energy. So it's not going to put you to sleep. Do you know how to do it? Because it's quite a known technique.
Do you want to share it? Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So the way you do it, you breathe in through the nose once and try to send it low, right? Then you take another small sip to the chest. Then you pause and then long exhale through the mouth. Let's do it again. Feel the ribs expand. One more. on the same inhale, pause, and then, and you can really extend that exhale. The more you extend the exhale, the more calming and regulating it's going to be. So this activates the parasympathetic, and we can also do it quite quickly, like, and then it's going to be a bit more mobilizing. So we can do it like breathing like this is excellent when we're feeling a bit like, I can't be ready to do anything. We're going to bring a little bit more energy. So very similar way of breathing, similar pattern, but we can use it for two different purposes. And a hack to this, if you want to induce a little bit more of that present moment regulation and vagus nerve stimulation, which also supports your thyroid, is to do humming on the out breath. So you do your normal, and then you do, and it's like a, you can bring it quite down. So the lower you can make the sounds, it almost sounds like a ship, like, it's quite funny. The better it stimulates the vagus nerve. And humming is amazing. Like humming in itself, you can incorporate in your day-to-day. For example, great tip, hum when you brush your teeth. It's actually possible. So it becomes this almost like little habit stacking. And if you do it twice a day, your vagus nerve will receive a little bit of stimulation. And the vagus nerve is responsible for fight or flight, like fight or flight turning off. So it induces that calm. Yeah. One more. I'll show one more. Actually, it's more of an idea than it's a tool and an idea. So a lot of times we are told that we should be just down regulating, right? But and like breathing, or I don't know, like doing a somatic scan or something like this. But a lot of anxiety has to be mobilized. So it's this energy in the body that actually needs to be released. We need to get rid of that excess, so much happening in the body, excess energy, rather than try to calm it down. Because calming it down is almost suppressing it. It's not closing that stress cycle. So doing things like bouncing on the spot or like swaying of the hands, as like a very nice Tai Chi derived exercise, can be very powerful, either in the morning or even in the evening before going to bed, when we've had a long day and it's been stressful and difficult. And then obviously that will probably impact our sleep quality. So yes, you can do physiological side breathing, but before then I will do some bouncing, some heel drops, something that really activates the body.
Thank you. And maybe one final thing I can ask you about is the library of glimmers, because I thought that was also a very useful tool.
Yeah, and building glimmers, of course. So this is something I learned from a lady called Deb Dana. She's one of the pioneers in the polyvagal theory. And basically what she teaches is that the nervous system regulation doesn't happen in those big sessions. We go to this breathwork release and then we are the new person the next day. It's helpful. I still love those things, right? But this is not how the nervous system actually regulates and finds safety. The way it finds safety, is through little moments every day. So if we have this task, this idea every day that we are going to look for little things that bring us just a sense of presence and beauty and awe, that in turn will have a super positive, calming, regulating effect on our nervous systems. And those glimmers, so those little moments of beauty, are literally everywhere. And the thing is that we are so preoccupied with getting through our day and chasing whatever it is we're chasing, we miss them. And it's so easy to notice them. So the practice is that you notice a glimmer. For example, I've got this plant on my window and there is a sun shining at it and it creates this really beautiful shadow. I could ignore it, or I could pause for a second and I can just breathe into it. And it literally takes minutes, just letting that feeling be felt by your nervous system, just letting it grow and putting it in your memory bank of glimmers, or you can create a real bank of glimmers. Amazing practice. And if you do that a few times a day, say 5 or more, because the glimmers are everywhere, like those times will be also the times where your nervous system will receive this strong signal. It's safe. I can relax. I can focus on things like making babies, like growing beautiful hair, doing the things that maybe losing the weight, if that's one of the that's one of the goals, right? So all those things then would have been put on a back burner because we were running away from the tiger all the time.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I love that a lot, and I use it especially on difficult days,
Yeah.
to remind me that both things can exist at the same time. So I can be having a hard day. I call it star angel dust. So I say, okay, where's my angel dust though? Because I can be
Uh-huh.
having a hard day and there can still be angel dust around me. And it's not like toxic positivity. It's not like trying to suppress. I'm still allowed to feel shitty. Um, and there is a beautiful plant, or there's the sun on my skin, or just maybe holding my child, or whatever. There's always angel dust everywhere.
Yeah. And it's literally what I teach, like exactly what you said. Both things can be true at the same time. We can have the worst week, and also in that week, good things happen. But our nervous system is primed for noticing danger. So
Well,
almost like I would say everyone is actually wired for negativity, because this is what our nervous system notices first, because it wants to protect us. So we can't just rely on us noticing these things. We have to almost force it in the beginning, and then it becomes a habit. But it's very difficult to be like that naturally. We are all hardwired for negativity, and the positivity just, takes a bit of effort, and it's never suppressing what's going so well, right? It's just allowing both things to be present.
true. Well, thank you so much, Aggie, for a beautiful conversation. As a final
Oh,
question, what would be your general message for anyone who's dealing with fertility issues and or pregnancy loss?
I know. Yeah, in the thyroid context, what I would say, and I really, really mean it, is that it's possible, despite what perhaps you're reading out there, despite, the research that we see. I actually work with women every single day who are in the process of conceiving, thinking about conceiving. They have had babies in the process, and it is possible. It does require awareness of how those imbalances affect your body, how the thyroid affects it, how the nervous system affects it. But you don't need to be perfectly healed and in this magical place in order to have a successful pregnancy and a healthy baby. It's absolutely possible if you think about the things that we've
Mhm.
talked about today.
Well, that's a message full of hope. I love that. Where can people find out more about you and your work? And I know you maybe also have a little bit of a discount for them.
Yeah, so I have, I hang out on Instagram, generally speaking. So if you just want to kind of follow me and see what I'm doing, you can find me on Instagram at the.thyroid.rebel. I always forget, but I think I got that right.
Cool.
I also have a website, but I think Instagram is the best place. But I am just about to launch a very exciting new project, which is a membership that is called the Thyroid Resilience Collective, that literally is designed to help women with thyroid conditions or thyroid imbalances. So it doesn't have to be diagnosed necessarily, regulate their nervous system and work with the mindset. So it kind of really takes you through everything we chatted about today in a very gentle and gradual way. So it's not like a course or program where you have to keep up with everything. It's more
Mm.
just gentle support. And normally it's £59 per month, but because I'm doing this big founding members launch for your lovely audience, I would like to offer £39 per month offer. So I'll share the exclusive discount code with Francois, so she can pop it in the email, like a podcast notes for you.
Yeah, we'll put it in the show notes. Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thanks.
Thank you for the beautiful work that you do. I love just with this podcast that I get to connect with women like you who are all like me on this journey of helping women empower themselves, I would say, getting back in control of their health, learning to use their bodies as their guides. And we're changing something, I feel. So thank you so much.
Passing on the healing, right?
Passing on the healing. Yeah, I'm going to,
Absolutely.
I'll keep using that one.
You can steal that. So lovely to meet you in person, because we actually never chatted before. And thank you for inviting me. It was an absolute pleasure to chat to you.
Likewise. And thanks also to the listeners for tuning in this week. If you want to reach out to me, you can find me on Instagram at thatfertilefeeling or email me at francoise@thatfertilefeeling.com. I always love to hear from you and I always get back to you. And I will try to post another episode in 2 weeks' time. Bye-bye.